The 2005 hurricane season was the busiest and most destructive in history. So destructive that a year later, some of our communities had yet to recover. In the aftermath of all those storms and all that destruction, our citizens and businesses were left to cope with massive rebuilding challenges very few of us were prepared for, including the construction industry. Virtually every segment of South Florida's construction industry was overwhelmed by the amount of work needed to bring our communities back, and it proved to be much, much more than they could ever handle. Many of these contractors were also scrambling to repair their own damaged homes. Countless contractors, particularly roofers, were forced to put frantic, desperate homeowners on long waiting lists or turn them away altogether. Unfortunately, that left a lot of us at the mercy of less qualified, often unlicensed, and sometimes dishonest contractors and outright scam artists. I'm Catherine Fernandez-Rundle, your state attorney. This video will provide you with the detailed information you will need to help you protect yourself from becoming a victim after the storm.
What's most important is to make sure that your contractor is a licensed contractor. For a contractor to obtain a license, he's got to meet minimum requirements set up by the state and by the county. That means he's got to be tested and he's got to have certain financial responsibilities. So the contractor now shows up at your house and you've asked him for a license and he tells you, well, I don't have the license with me, but the license number is on the side of the truck. So the question is, how do you know that that in fact is a legitimate license number? That's when it's important. You can contact the Department of Business and Professional Regulation and they will tell you whether or not this person is a state licensed contractor, whether the company that he represents is a state licensed company, or the Building Code Compliance Office for Miami-Dade County, because they have separate license numbering systems, but both agencies require that the contractor pass a competency exam to make sure that he is competent to do the work that he's contracting for. When you contact Department of Business and Professional Regulation and Building Code Compliance to find out about their license, find out whether or not they have any complaints against them. Because if they have complaints, then you will be able to find out what the status of those complaints are and whether the company's dealt properly with those complaints and have satisfied the customers. Don't be surprised if when you check out that license number comes back to a particular individual, because individuals are licensed, not companies. But when a person is licensed, they then can qualify the company, and the Department of Business and Professional Regulation and Building Code Compliance will be able to tell you whether or not the particular company that you're entering into a contract with is licensed and who their qualifying agent is. This written estimate, although it may say proposal on it, etc., may ultimately be the only written document that you obtain from him. It will turn into your contract for work to be done. So it's important that certain things be included within that written estimate and the contract itself. It should have the name, the address, the telephone number, and there should be the license number printed on that contract. You should have an estimate as to how much it's going to cost and specify the type of work that's going to be done. After Hurricane Andrew, we ran into a situation where there were contracts for hundreds of thousands of dollars, and the total detail in there was rebuild the house. That doesn't protect anybody. You should detail the work that you want done. If it's re-roofing, specify that it's re-roofing. It's roofing repairs, specify the type of repairs that are to be done. If it's construction or reconstruction of a home, detail the work that needs to be done. With a roof, for example, a roofer is going to want a down payment. We recommend that you give as little down payment as possible. Then tie the subsequent payments to stages of completion. Generally, a roof will involve completing of the sheathing or the wood base for the roof. That would be followed by what they refer to as the dry-in, which would then be followed by the shingle or the covering of the roof, and then, of course, the final inspection. The payments should be made by check, not by cash, and the check should be made payable to the contractor who you enter into the contract with. If it's a company, then those checks should be made payable to the company. If they ask for cash, and there may be a legitimate reason for that, make sure you get a written receipt. The written receipt is dated, the amount that you pay the contractor is on the receipt, what work it's being paid for, and that it is signed by the contractor. In Florida, even though you may have already paid your contractor the contract price, if the contractor hasn't paid the subcontractors, the laborers, the suppliers, they have a right to put a lien on your property. So you have to protect yourselves. And one of the ways of protecting yourselves is making sure that you get partial release of liens every time you pay that contractor money. And before you make the final payment, you want to get a final release of lien that clearly states that the contractor has paid for all materials, for all labor, for all work done on your home. It is absolutely essential that the contractor pull the permit because it triggers all the protections that a homeowner has through the local building code requirements. First of all, he has to post that permit at the job. Make sure that the contractor who you entered into the contract with is the same name as appears on that permit. In addition, the permit will also trigger to make sure that inspections are done, that the work is being done properly. By filing the notice of commencement with the clerk's office and then posting a copy of that notice of commencement on the front of your house along with the permit, you're putting all subcontractors and material men on notice that this particular job has a licensed contractor and that they should seek payment from that licensed contractor.
While reconstruction after a damaging hurricane often generates many of the post-disaster problems you've just seen, they are not the only ones. You should also be aware of criminal activity that may occur and be prepared to protect yourself.
One of the benefits of making sure that the contractor is licensed is that the licensing agency requires the contractor to have the appropriate workers' compensation insurance, which not only protects his workers but protects you from getting sued by the workers. Ask him for copies of his insurance binders to make sure that he in fact has the insurance. If you run into a situation where you find prices have increased in an unconscionable manner, you can report these price increases to the authorities and they will investigate to determine whether or not price gouging has occurred. There will be emergency numbers all over the news and all over the TV screens before a hurricane hits. We have all, I think, received solicitations for charitable donations. We have to be very, very careful about those donations that we make. Many of these charitable organizations, in fact, are nothing but scams. I would urge you all to make sure that when you give a donation, it's to a well-known, reputable, charitable organization that you can be sure the money is going to go where it's intended, that is, to the victims of the disaster. There's another matter that you have to be concerned with, and that's insurance fraud. Sometimes we have unscrupulous adjusters or unscrupulous contractors who are telling you that they can get around your deductible by increasing the amount of your insurance claim, and then they'll share whatever difference there is with you. I urge you not to do that. It's against the law, and if you are discovered, not only will you be prosecuted, but your insurance may be voided. Sometimes after a storm, you will have door-to-door solicitors come up to you, people who might say that they're contractors and they've got a job down the street and they've got some extra materials so they can help you by repairing your roof at a cut-rate price. I'm telling you, beware of these people. If you decide that you want to utilize the door-to-door solicitations, check them out. Because if you give them money, what you may find, what you've bought, is an improper job by an unlicensed contractor, and it's going to cause you more problems than it solves.
In this part of the country, we know only too well it's best to prepare early for hurricane season. We now know we'd also be wise to prepare early for the aftermath. Remember, ask to see the license. Get all your information and details in writing. Have your contractor get the building permit. Get your release of liens before you pay. Write your check only to the contracting company. As your state attorney, I want you to know that if you believe you've been victimized by fraudulent or unscrupulous contractors, you should call my office at 305-547-3300. For more information and a detailed checklist on how you can protect yourself and your property from a storm's aftermath, visit our website, miamisao.com. Remember, your best protection during the hurricane season is to be prepared both before and after the storm.